Hi, I'm Rashonda Cade. This is Reading with Rashonda. We are reading Behind the Scenes by Elizabeth Keckley. We are on the second part of chapter 3. So, where we left off, Elizabeth Keckley had gotten support from people in St. Louis to purchase her freedom, and there was a white woman, Mrs. Le Bourgeois, who said, "We're going to get this $1,200 for you to buy your freedom." And so where we left off was there are a lot of letters, or at least several letters in support of her and to pledge money to her. So that's where we are. Let's get started. Second part of chapter 3. The following, copied from the original papers, contain in brief the history of my emancipation. I love that it's the history of her emancipation, because some might think this whole book is the history of her emancipation, but really what she's saying is this portion of these letters that people gave in support of me, both financially and to, uphold my reputation. That's the history of her emancipation. I love that. I promised to give Lizzie and her son George their freedom on payment of $1,200. Anne P. Garland, June 27th, 1885. Lizzie, I send you this note to sign for the sum of $75, and when I give you the whole amount, you will sign the other note for $100. Ellen M. Doan. In the paper, you will find $25. See, it is all right before the girl leaves. These are not small amounts of money. Like, I would have to Google it to see what $1,200 in 1868 was versus now, but that's a lot of money. Like $75, $25, that's all a lot of money. You know what? I'm going to pause this recording and I'm going to Google to see what $1,200 in 1868 would be worth now. So I'm hitting pause and I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. I Googled it. $1,200 in 1868 would be worth approximately $25,000 today in 2023. The internet gave me a couple of different figures. One was just over $25,000. One was like $25,800. But somewhere in the $25,000 range is what $1,200 from 1868 would be worth today. So people who are pledging 75, 25, 100 will see pledges for even more. That is a significant sum of money that they were pledging for Elizabeth's freedom. All right, I'll keep going. I have received of Lizzie Keckley $950, which I have deposited with Darby and Barksdale for her. $600 on the 21st July, $300 on the 27th and 28th of July, and $50 on 13th August, 1855. I have and shall make use of said money for Lizzie's benefit, and hereby guarantee to her 1% per month, as much more as can be made she shall have. The 1%, as it may be checked out, I will be responsible for myself, as well as for the whole amount when it shall be needed by her. Willis L. Williams, St. Louis, 13th August, 1855. Know all men by these presents that for and in consideration of the love and, okay, so this is like a straight up proclamation that is being issued. I don't know if you've ever heard a proclamation being issued. I have at church on several occasions that a mayor or somebody else who's holding some political office has sent a proclamation to church for like honoring the pastor, maybe honoring somebody who is deceased, honoring some sort of good work, but they all start just like this. Know all men by these presents. I was like, oh, this thing that I've heard happen in church happened in 1868. What? Like sometimes I feel like I'm so far removed from 1868, and other times I'm like, man, 1868 was like yesterday. All right. Know all men by these presents that for and in consideration of the love and affection we bear towards our sister Anne P. Garland of St. Louis, Missouri, and for the further consideration of $5 in hand paid, we hereby sell and convey unto her the said Anne P. Garland, a Negro woman named Lizzie, and a Negro boy, her son, named George, Said Lizzie now resides at St. Louis and is a seamstress known there as Lizzie Garland, the wife of a yellow man named James and called James Keckley. Said George is a bright mulatto boy and is known in St. Louis as Garland's George. We warrant these two slaves to be slaves for life, but make no representations as to age or health. Witness our hands and seals this 10th day of August, 1855. James R. Putnam, LS. I don't know what LS stands for. E.M. Putnam, LS. A. Burwell, LS. I don't know what that means. The state of Mississippi, Warren County, city of Vicksburg. Be it remembered that on the 10th day of August, in the year of our Lord 1855, before me, Francis N. Steele, a commissioner, resident in the city of Vicksburg, duly commissioned and qualified by the executive authority and under the laws of the state of Missouri to take the acknowledgement of deeds, etc., to be used or recorded therein, personally appeared James R. Putnam and E.M. Putnam, his wife, and Armistead Burwell, to me known to be the individuals named in and who executed the foregoing conveyance, and acknowledged that they executed the same for the purposes therein mentioned, and the E.M. Putnam being by me examined apart from her husband, and being fully acquainted with the contents of the foregoing conveyance, acknowledged that she executed the same freely. I'm pausing there because it's been a lot of kind of high language, but what I'm getting from this is that James Putnam, his wife E.M. Putnam, and Armistead Burwell are who they say they are, because this Francis N. Steele, a commissioner from Vicksburg, knows them and knows they are to be who they say they are. So he's like notarizing their identities. And then he questioned E.M. Putnam, who was the wife of James R. Putnam, to make sure she understood everything that was going on. I find it both unfair and laudable that he questioned her to make sure she understood everything that was going on. Unfair in two ways. One, that one might assume that a wife doesn't understand what's going on simply for the fact that she is a woman and a wife. That's one unfair way. Another unfair way that I find in questioning is that you assume she wasn't the one who was in charge of everything in the first place. Like, oh, she's just a woman, she's not going to understand. Maybe she was the one who was pulling the strings. But laudable in the way that he's making sure that she understands everything her name assigned to. That's important. But I guess unfair in another third way, that women often just had to sign off for things because their husband said to, and they had no sort of social standing at all. So anyway, that's where I am on that. I'll keep reading. I'll go back a little bit. And the E.M. Putnam being by me examined apart from her husband, and being fully acquainted with the contents of the foregoing conveyance, acknowledged that she executed the same freely, and relinquished her dower and any other claim she might have in and to the property therein mentioned, freely and without fear, compulsion, or undue influence of her said husband. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and affixed my official seal this 10th day of August, A.D. 1855, F.N. Steele, Commissioner for Missouri. Know all that I, Ann P. Garland, of the county and city of St. Louis, state of Missouri, that makes me laugh because I live in the city of St. Louis, Missouri. That is not in the county of St. Louis. St. Louis County and St. Louis City are two separate entities. Apparently, they were not two separate entities in 1855, but currently, if you live in St. Louis City, you do not live in St. Louis County because St. Louis City is not in a county. It's very strange to me. I have lived here a very long time, but I didn't grow up here, and I was like, what is this madness? There's a huge divide between St. Louis City and St. Louis County. The services you get, the school districts, it's all very separate, and it's a little strange. So this made me chuckle. Know all men that I, Ann P. Garland, of the county and city of St. Louis, state of Missouri, for and in consideration of the sum of $1,200 to me in hand, paid this day in cash, hereby emancipate my Negro woman Lizzie and her son George. Oh, That is a shouting moment. I hereby emancipate my Negro. I mean, I'm sad that you called her my Negro. She's yours. I guess she was. She was your property. You owned her, except for you hereby emancipate her and her son George. That is like a hallelujah moment. I would have been had a shout happening right then. Oh, let's hereby emancipate my Negro Lizzie and her son George. The said Lizzie is known in St. Louis as the wife of James, who is called James Keckley, is of light complexion, about 37 years of age, by trade a dressmaker, and called by those who know her Garland's Lizzie. The said boy George is the only child of Lizzie, is about 16 years of age, and is almost white, and is called by those who know him Garland's George. Witness my hand and seal this 13th day of November, 1855, Ann P. Garland. Witness John Wickham, Willis L. Williams, in St. Louis Circuit Court, October term, 1855. Oh, okay. Sorry, there was a space there. I shouldn't have read the in St. Louis Circuit Court. I am so happy. Like, I'm like moved to tears practically for this moment. Yeah. Can you even imagine having been held in chattel slavery and then having the document saying that you are your own person, that you are free? Hallelujah. Okay, to some things that intrigued me. I hereby emancipate my Negro woman Lizzie and her son George. This said Lizzie is known in St. Louis as the wife of James, who is called James Keckley, is of light complexion. So funny that I'm emancipating my Negro woman, who is of light complexion, about 37 years of age, and I believe that it is about 37 years of age. Many slaves didn't know when their birthdays were or how exactly old they were. But so if she was 37 in 1855 and the book was written 13 years later, she's almost 50. So I guess that's what she meant when she said she was on the shady side of 40. Okay. And then it goes on that she's known as Garland's Lizzie because she was owned by the Garlands and they called her Lizzie. Then George is the only child of Lizzie, is about 16 years of age, and is almost white. George is almost white. Look at that. And George in Uncle Tom's Cabin was married to Eliza. If George was also almost white, this was published after Uncle Tom's Cabin was, but that's an interesting correlation to me. Uncle Tom's Cabin was published right around 1850, and this not until 1868. But if her George was 16 in 1855. I'm just wondering. So Harriet Beecher Stowe, who wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, is truly a fascinating woman. But from all accounts, she was a kind of person who would go to the events and the parties or whatever, but would sit and just watch and observe. And a lot of what ended up in Uncle Tom's Cabin and other things that she wrote were based on her observations, the stories she heard, what she read in the newspapers. And I'm just wondering what, like, how much of this was popular and known. Anyway, George was a fairly common name, so I can't go too much into it, but that was intriguing for me. I love those sorts of moments of connection between different works of literature and how they tell you something about the age that they're writing about. I love reading. I love literature. We can learn so much about life from reading literature that we can extrapolate to our present, but we can learn so much about what happened in the past and how things were connected and who people were. It's awesome. All right, I'm going to keep reading. In St. Louis Circuit Court, October term 1855, November 15th, 1855, State of Missouri, County of St. Louis. Be it remembered that on this 15th day of November, 855, in open court came John Wickham and Willis L. Williams. These two subscribing witnesses, examined under oath to that effect, proved the execution and acknowledgment of said deed by Ann P. Garland to Lizzie and her son George, which said proof of acknowledgment is entered on the record of the court of that day. In testimony whereof, I hereto set my hand and affix the seal of said court at office in the city of St. Louis, the day and year aforesaid. William J. Hammond, clerk. So on the 13th of November, 1855, Ann P. Garland emancipated Elizabeth Keckley and her son George. On November 15th, 1855, two men had to serve as witnesses and say that yes, Ann P. Garland did in fact manumit Elizabeth and George. We needed two men to approve what the one woman had done. Anyway, so it became official on November 15th, 1855. All right, and here's another document. State of Missouri, County of St. Louis. I, William J. Hammond, clerk of the circuit court within and for the county aforesaid, certify the foregoing to be a true copy of a deed of emancipation from Ann P. Garland to Lizzie and her son George, as fully as the same remain in my office. In testimony whereof, I hereto set my hand and affix the seal of said court at office in the city of St. Louis, this 15th day of November, 1855. William J. Hammond, clerk, by William A. Pennington, D.C. All right, one more document, then we're done with this chapter. State of Missouri, County of St. Louis. I, the undersigned recorder of said county, certify that the foregoing instrument of writing was filed for record in my office on the 14th day of November, 1855. It is truly recorded in book number 169, page 288. Witness my hand and official seal, date aforesaid. C. Keckley, recorder. So the documents of manumission were established on November 13th. They were recorded on November 14th and approved on November 15th. I really see why Elizabeth Keckley said that this is the history of her emancipation. Like, this truly was the history of her emancipation. We started with a document dated June 27th, 1855, that was pledging money to her, and we ended with a document. Interesting that we ended with the document dated the 14th and not the 15th, but that's okay. We ended with the document dated the 15th of November in 1855 that she actually became free. So from June through November, June to July, July to August, August, September, September, October, October, November. So 5 months. I mean, she had been trying, honestly, for much of her life to be free and to get the money and, you know, all that. But like, this 5-month journey was really very interesting and fascinating that she included all of the legal documents in her book. I'm assuming she did this for a number of reasons. One, to show the rigmarole that one must go through to be free in a country where we have been endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, among these life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So I find her legal documents in direct contrast to our founding documents, and I can only assume that was intentional. I think she also includes these because people totally questioned the freedom of former slaves who wrote, who were on the speaking circuits. they could get snatched back into slavery really at any moment. This is proof. I am free. I went through all these things, and not that you don't get freedom when you escape, but this is a legal freedom instead of an illegally gained freedom. So I think she includes that for that reason as well. And if anybody does try to come snatch her back, she's like, "Look, you don't even have to go to the county clerk's office in St. Louis. It's right here in my book." Boom, bam. She was covering her bases. Thank you, Elizabeth Keckley. So that was chapter 3 of Elizabeth Keckley's Behind the Scenes, and we really are getting behind the scenes. I love it. So until next time, I'm Rashonda Cade, and this is Reading with Rashonda.